Hello everyone, this is Jimmy and welcome to episode 24 of FTB Infinity Evolved Skyblock mode. Today, it's a big day. We get to set up our ME system today, our Applied Energistics 2 ME controller here, and there's a decision we have to make first. Do we want our ME system to either coexist with or replace our logistics pipes? And I'm thinking that I want them to coexist. Not because there's any cute function for them to work together. In fact, in this version of Minecraft, they're basically completely unable to work together. However, it's just a lot of work to rip out everything that we've done in logistics pipes so far, and it all works, right? If it isn't broke, it will, what's it say? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, it ain't broke. My plan then is to, first of all, we're going to need space. So I'm going to expand our platform some way or another and set up the heart of our controller there. That'll be, the central ME controller. I love expanding the platform with the builder. It's just like blocks magically appear where you want them to go. Thanks to the mega torches we have laying around too. No mob spawn in the expansion areas. It's very convenient. It's time for some speed chiseling. Vroom vroom. Found that as long as I don't sprint, I can chisel as fast as I can fly. It's pretty neat. Voila! Much more building space. We've just about doubled, I'd say. I'll have to pull up the journey map. Just about doubled the amount of total space we have. So, I'm not going to bother lighting it up because that's more work than it's worth. Also, at some point soon, we're going to be able to make it eternal day here in this dimension. Eventually, we'll set up solar panels for power, and when that happens, we'll want it to be eternal day, because solar panels work, well, they work best during the day. Anyways, let's, I guess, just pick a random chunk here. We'll call it the center. I like this one. This chunk will hold our ME controller. ME controller blocks look so dead when they're not powered. It's like they're crying to you to power them. But anyways, the way I usually design my ME systems is to have two controllers, one to power the what I call the main network, the network that does all the work, and one to power the P2 subnet whose main purpose is to transfer P2p channels. So I'll talk a little bit more about P2p and channels and all that jazz later once I have like the actual components built. But first, let's build those components. So because obviously we can't use our ME system to build anything right now, it's still dead and unborn, we have to craft all that with logistics pipes. So I'm going to put in the recipes for all the various components like cables, P2P connectors, storage buses, etc., etc. To get us started here, I have P2p tunnels, some cables, so smart cables transfer up to 8 channels, dense cables transfer up to 32 channels, cable anchors just keep cables from connecting, dense conduit is dense cable in conduit form, and a Tesseract. So let's start with the Tesseract. This just provides, well, it can provide anything, but right now I have it configured to have, I have an energy supplier somewhere else, and I'll have this giving us energy here. Energy mode receive only ignored. Hello, power please. 1 power please. It looks like logistics pipes won't directly provide energy into a Tesseract. Let's put this Tesseract up against that energy cell that we have then. Power, please. And now our, it lights up. And it looks pretty darn cool actually against the dark backdrop. So each face of a ME controller provides up to 32 channels. The way channels work in Applied Energistics is that most devices, almost all devices, consume at least one channel. In fact, almost all devices consume exactly one channel. If there are no available channels, the device just simply doesn't work. You can build a system without any controllers, in which case you get 8 global channels to share across all devices on that network. If you use the controller, however, each face of the controller provides up to 32 channels that you can consume, however you like. The challenge is that if you wish to consume channels far away, you have to actually transport those channels there. And this is where P2P comes in. So then, think about like the naive solution, right? The beginner solution is if you want channels far away, like 32 channels far away, you just run a dense cable all the way there. And if this is 1,000 blocks away, or even just 100 blocks away, you're running over 100 pieces of dense cable or dense conduit to get out there. That gets pretty expensive because these cables are, I mean, they're not like expensive to make, but they're definitely non-trivial. So enter the P2p tunnel. A P2p tunnel, in a way, it compresses channels. So if I have 32 channels right here, and I put a P2p tunnel on it, on the other side of the P2p tunnel, it can take these 32 channels and compress them down into one channel, right? This P2p tunnel is one device, and thus it consumes one channel. Then I can run a regular cable because now I have 32 channels on this, have been compressed down to one. I can run this cable to wherever I need them to go and say, you know, this is 100 blocks away, right? Just for demonstration purposes. You can place another P2p tunnel and use this one to uncompress. So channels cannot be used while in compressed form. But if you compress them, then transport them, then uncompress them, now remember, this is another device. This tunnel takes another channel. So now we have 2 channels are being used to transport 32 channels. That is the best ratio you can get. Now there's a couple other things you have to keep in mind. This here, this effectively forms a subnet, so that you have each subnet needs to be powered somehow, and because this subnet does not have a controller on it, you can only have a total of 8 channels on this subnet. So the way I'm going to work around this is by having all of my P2P channels on one subnet, and I'll have this controller power that subnet. Let me wire it up a bit and show you what I mean. This is how I like to set up how do I describe it? The initial connections, I guess, to my ME controller. So, the P2P tunnels in this version of Minecraft don't have any visual indicator if they're connected or not. Like, they'll say device online, and they'll look like this regardless of whether or not there's anything connected to them. So, I like to have a piece of dense cable on the output side, just so I can see, you know, if generally speaking, right, if there are 0 channels in use downstream of the P2P tunnel, then this given tunnel is free. It's not strictly required. You can remember whether or not tunnels are in use some other way, but that's why I have a single piece of dense cable coming off each face of the controller that I'm choosing to use. Bear in mind that my design here is definitely not the most efficient way of extracting usable channels from a controller. However, this gives you way more channels than you could possibly dream of using. And the controller here can continue to be expanded upwards, and you can use the interior channels if needed. You'd have to be doing something absolutely bonkers to even use up all the channels that are available on the controller I'm showing here then. Anyways, as you can see, each side here, or each side of the controller exposes 7 controller faces. So that's 7 times 28 possible channels, but they all get compressed down to 7 individual channels here. Right, there are 7 or P2P tunnels. Then all those go around this inner loop here, or this outer loop, and connect to this second controller, which will serve as the ME controller for our P2P subnet. You can run your subnet off the same controller as your main network. Nothing wrong or inherently right about that. It's just, you know, a design decision that I choose to make to do it this way. I find this a little bit easier to tell when you mess it up, because if you accidentally connect your mainnet to your subnet, all your, let's see, how can I do that easily? Both of your ME controllers will turn, let's see, if I do this, I should do it. They'll both turn red, because there's a rule that you can only have one ME controller multi-block on each network. So if you end up accidentally leaking your subnet into your mainnet, the system will immediately shut down and be like, you know, hey, it's wrong, fix it, right? It's kind of like the fail fast approach to software development. Anyways, as for the other side then, so this is how, you know, these are all the P2P tunnels that connect directly to the controller. For the other side, all we have to do is run cables off of this ME controller. All sides of an ME controller are internally connected, right? So anything here is internally connected to here. They're all part of the same network. But then I just have to run cables to wherever I'll just stop here because that's how many cables I have. There's absolutely nothing wrong with switching from dense cable to dense conduit. Oh, in fact, in this version of Ender Isle, dense conduit, if you look in the tooltip up top there, it even tells you how many channels are in use. That's a feature that was lost in future versions of Minecraft for reasons I will not understand. Anyways, then you can, say I want access to some channels here, right? Then I can put down another ME tunnel here. And if we, here, I'll just use dense cable here. Then I just have to link this tunnel to any one of these. So let me grab a memory card to do that with. The memory card just serves as, think of it like a copy paste settings tool. So you shift right click on the receiving end, that is the end on the controller, and then you go right click on the end that has your consuming devices, and it links the two together. So now any devices that I place over here are connected directly to our central controller. If I grab an interface, whoopsies. While I'm doing some crafting, I may as well recharge my jetpack. At some point, I should make the wireless charger for my jetpack so that I don't have to drop it in this energy cell from time to time. Let's try that again. If I put any channel consuming devices here, say I place some interfaces, we can see that on this side, it's still only one channel used, because once the channels get compressed, right, it only takes one channel regardless of how many are in use. But here there are 3 channels, and which one did I link to? This one, right? Yep, here there are also 3 channels in use. So that is how I can tell which P2p tunnels are in use. Any that have more than, greater than 0 downstream channel usage, generally speaking, any that have greater than 0 always have a connection point down upstream somewhere, because those channels have to come from somewhere. But any with 0 are probably not in use. One simplification I've kind of grown to like is that these connections, right, they're called P2P, which I assume stands for point-to-point. I suppose it could stand for peer-to-peer, but that doesn't really make sense in this context. But for all the main controller knows and cares, this P2P tunnel is actually directly connected to this one. These two are basically, it's as if you took everything that's connected to exactly to this P2P tunnel block, so like this connection right here, and plugged it in exactly right here. That way, if you think about it that way, it offers a kind of abstraction, right? Now, for the subnet, it doesn't care what's on this side. This here, it could be a P2P tunnel, or it could be literally any channel-consuming device. It really doesn't care. That way, again, you get the abstraction of, to the subnet, or the subnet doesn't care that this is a P2P tunnel, and the mainnet doesn't care where the other end of the connection is. It just works. So I hope that kind of made sense. I tried to think about it in a way that I could make this understandable to people that only have some experience using applied energistics, because I definitely agree that the channels part of applied energistics, it adds a lot of complexity without adding a lot of value. It's almost complexity for the sake of complexity. But unfortunately, in most expert packs, even if you don't like it, you can't disable it, because if you disable the channels feature, it disables ME controllers and stuff, and oftentimes that breaks a lot of the scripts that make the pack work. So a lot of people that don't like channels are stuck using them, and I hope that this little explanation about how subnets and P2P works can make it a lot more bearable for you. So as we go forward, if as I build, I'll probably be building most of my network connection will actually be with dense conduit, because it's a lot cheaper than dense cable. Well, dense cable takes a lot of wool, and I don't have a sheep farm. I have a spider. My mob farm produces a little bit of spider string, which can be used in place of wool, or which can be used to make wool, but it only makes a little bit of string, whereas this dense conduit is much cheaper to make. So anyways, generally speaking, my layout will be to run dense conduit to wherever the channel, wherever I need 32 channels, or up to 32 channels, and then I'll put a P2P connection. So those P2P tunnel kit must connect to a smart cable, so we'll do that. And then I'll link this with, one of those. And then on this side, I'll run more dense conduit. And on this side, I have access to 32 channels. but I don't need to run a single connection between every set of 32 channels and my primary controller. I hope that makes some sense. In order for the ME system to have a human interface, you need various terminals. So whoopsies, that's not what I meant to place. Give me those back. The crafting terminal is, well, for crafting. The pattern terminal is for encoding crafting recipes. And the interface terminal is an easy way to place those crafting recipes into interfaces, which are what actually handles your auto crafting. So right now there are no items in here because we don't actually have any storage hooked up. Let me go ahead and hook up our ME system here to the existing storage we have. So I'll hook it up to these 8 modular storages, and in the various other places where basically anywhere I have a active supplier module. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Anywhere I have a provider module, I could swap that, or I could also put a storage bus on that inventory, and then we can access that inventory through the ME system as well. Well, the wiring isn't pretty in the slightest. It's kind of all over the place, but all of these various drawer systems that have items are now hooked up via external storages to our applied logistics system. So when we access our terminal here, we can see all of our items. The biggest advantage of using this over the logistics crafting table is that there's no lag time between requesting items and getting them, right? You just get the items you request immediately. Now, let's set up, or let's at least begin to set up auto crafting with applied logistics. So all these machines that do auto crafting here for logistics pipes, I'm just going to leave them there because there's not enough space to put the applied logistics auto crafting setup. I'll probably set up more machines, over here or something, to handle applied logistics auto crafting. For starters, though, let's do the 3x3 crafting grid. So that's effectively what all these logistics crafting tables are doing, but the applied logistics auto crafter can be faster and, again, doesn't have item travel time. The actual auto crafting setup is done is made using a whole bunch of molecular assemblers and interfaces. Can't actually right-click any of the interfaces with this setup. I thought you could. Guess not. But the interfaces are what actually hold the recipes. They transmit the recipe. When you request a crafting task, they transmit items to the molecular assemblers, which do the actual crafting. These assemblers also take or have literal crafting time, like it takes them, without any upgrades, maybe about a second, maybe a little bit less than a second, but around a second for each crafting task. So surrounding each interface with 6, I guess up to 5, because one side you need to have the cable, but up to 5 assemblers gets you near optimal crafting speed. Now, if you want the very fastest crafting speed, you have to put acceleration cards in all of these, but there's like 2 stacks of molecular assemblers per tower, and there's 2 towers, so that's like 20 stacks of acceleration cards, and I don't have the resources to make all that right now, so we'll get around to that later. But now, say if I want to craft something, let's encode a recipe, I don't know, something simple. Here, we'll do oak wood becomes 2 oak planks. We encode this recipe, put it into one of the assemblers here, but we still can't craft it because applied logistics uses crafting CPUs to hold intermediates during the crafting process. So right now, if I were to try to craft oak wood planks, you see it's craftable. It says, we have the inputs, but it says no crafting CPUs are available. Let's go ahead and make some of those. Crafting CPUs they're made up of, fundamentally, you need a storage unit, and I guess that's it. Technically, that's all you need is a storage unit. But if you include some crafting coprocessors with your crafting CPU, it can do multiple crafting tasks in parallel. So ideally, your crafting CPUs are set up with, enough storage to do your crafting tasks, and enough coprocessors that all parallel tasks can run, in parallel. Optionally, you can have a crafting monitor if you want to be able to look at it and see what it's working on. I frankly don't care because the terminal can tell you this information. Let's use the logistics pipes once again to craft its replacement. This is like asking a robot to build its replacement. Maybe that's cruel, but I'm going to make, let's go with 8 CPUs at first. So 8 64K storage. Whoopsies, it says you're missing, oh, I encoded 64K twice. This one should be 16K. There we go. All right, let's try that again. So I want 8 of these. There we go. And then for each crafting CPU, let's go with, if we do a 3x3x2, that's 18. So I need 17 crafting coprocessors per. You know, let's go 7 crafting coprocessors per for a 2x2x2 crafting CPU. So 7 times 8 is what, 56? Give me 56 of these, please. Thank you. And it's nice to watch the auto crafting work. This is one thing I'll miss from logistics pipes. What the coolness of watching items flow around. Although, you know, all this time items spent in pipes is time that items are not being spent actually doing anything useful. I personally find that 64K crafting CPUs is enough until you get to the late game of most packs, like practically the end game, I suppose, if you want to call it that. So I'm sure at some point we'll need larger CPUs in this, but for now this will do. Now that we have these CPUs, since I can't request with this, I have to request from here. If I ask for oak planks, give me 1,000 of them. See, like 1,000 oak planks takes 2,000 bytes. So I hit the start button and off it goes. It just starts crafting them. One of these interfaces is the one that's servicing this request. I couldn't tell you which one. In theory, if you look closely, the items show up in the assembler briefly while they're being crafted. It is a pretty cool visual effect, but there's too many possible places for it to be, so I have no clue where it is. But here it is. So as you can see, while it's crafting, you can see like the product in the molecular assembler. It also clearly takes way less than a second per without acceleration cards or overclock, or whatever you call these. This is probably close to like a quarter second, half second each. It is pretty fast. And looks like that just finished. Next up, let's tackle digital item storage. Hey, why aren't you turned on? What's wrong? Oh, you're not plugged in. My bad. Turn on. Open sesame. It probably takes a second for it to realize it's plugged in. But anyways, digital item storage. Right now, all of our items are being stored in some type of storage inventory, like these modular storages, or the vast majority of items are in some form of drawer. However, Applied Logistics offers its own, hey look, it's on now, extremely efficient digital item storage in the form of these like storage drives. So they go up to 64K by default, although if there's extra cells in the pack, which there is, they can go up even more than this. So for each storage drive, the number of items it stores is a little bit complicated, but the idea is that say the 64K drive here stores 65,536 bytes and up to 63 item types. An item type is one item that would stack with itself if it didn't have a stack limit. That is like, say this pickaxe here, right? If I had another pickaxe that was identical to it, it would stack, except for the fact that they have stack limit 1. So they would take up one type. However, if I have this pickaxe and one that has one more durability than it, they wouldn't stack, and that would take up 2 types. For each storage cell, it can hold up to 63 unique types, and each type takes up basically all 63. If you have 63 unique types in it, they take up 50% of the drive. So each type takes up 50 divided by 63 divided by 100 percent of the drive. The gist of it is, if you use these storage cells to hold single items, or like, you know, stacks of one item, they're very inefficient. But if you use them to hold items that do stack, or would stack, you know, items that are identical, let's put it that way, then they are very efficient because each item takes up 1 bit. That is 1/8 of a byte, right? So if you have a 64K drive or 64K storage cell, and in it you hold one item type, you can hold basically 65,000 times 8 is like 255,000 items. That in that ballpark in one storage cell. and that's more than a drawer can hold in this version. So yeah, the storage cells are extremely efficient as long as you use them not to hold like junk, basically, right? If you just pipe the storage out of, or the drops from like a mob farm into it, you'll fill these up extremely quickly because you'll get, bows with 50 durability, bows with 49 durability, bows with 48 durability. You get it. And that'll take up all 63 types and jam it up very quickly. So yeah, it's somewhat important that you don't fill your digital storage with items like that. Might as well start the applied logistics auto crafting too. So now that we have applied logistics, we can use it to begin use it to start auto crafting its own components. One of the rather annoying things about this version of applied logistics is that when you drag a recipe in, if you don't have the items, it actually it doesn't put the ghost item in here to in the recipe. You have to actually you can drag in ghosts through JEI or NEI, whatever something EI, but it's oh, did I do something wrong? Wait, no, I'm not trying to make these are supposed to be 16s. But yeah, it's somewhat annoying that it doesn't automatically import the recipe correctly, I would say, because you don't actually need one of these items in your network to encode the recipe. I've encoded all the recipes, at least all the crafting recipes, to make these 64k cells. Let's request 20 of them, and we'll see that there are some stuff we don't have, namely glass and Certus quartz dust. These cannot just be crafted in a 3x3 crafting grid, right? These require processing, so this seems like a good chance to start setting up processing recipes. In these two cases as well, cured glass, it can be normal glass or quite clear glass, but is made in a furnace, and this is in a pulverizer. Generally speaking, recipes that use the furnace and the pulverizer can be trivially distributed, right? That means that you can just take any amount of input, split it up however you wish between multiple processing units, and it just works. For example, a recipe that cannot be trivially distributed, let's say, would be I don't know, what's an alloy? Solarium. If you try to trivially, arbitrarily distribute items to make solarium, which has two unique inputs, you might end up sending soul sand to one induction smelter and gold to another one, and that means you end up producing nothing because you have half the input in one, half the input in the other. We're not going to deal with by distributing recipes. The main advantage of distributing recipes is that you can run them much faster. Instead of having one machine process your smelting tasks, you have, a dozen, or more maybe. And as a result, it's very fast. So we're going to distribute recipes where we can, but we're going to tackle the problem of alloys and that such later. The name that when you place down a ME interface on your network, it shows up on the interface terminal. The name it shows up under is normally the block you have it connected to. So if you have one connected to a molecular assembler, right, like this, then it'll show up as molecular assembler in your interface terminal. That's just a convenience thing to make it easier to tell, which interface you're working with. However, if you want to distribute recipes, you'll probably want to use something like a buffer chest. So if you have a ME interface connected to a iron chest, and you look on your interface terminal, it'll show up as iron chest. That's not very useful. If you, however, rename the interface on an anvil, it's just a neat little trick that'll make your life a little bit easier. We can name it how about Redstone Furnace? Why does it cost 5 levels to rename an item? That's ridiculous. Now, when you place this down, it'll show up as Redstone Furnace in here. It's sorted alphabetically, so now it's at the bottom. But if you pick it up, I think it loses its name. Oh, no, it doesn't. If you pick it up with a wrench, it keeps its name. Neat. Well, anyways, with that, I'm going to set up the automation for Redstone Furnaces. I have 8 resident ones on me. Each of these processing lines has a interface, which is where all the items start from. All the items get dumped into an iron chest, serves as a buffer. If we need more than, 9 recipes, I can use the other sides of this iron chest. If we need more than, I guess I have 3 sides easily available, right? The front side and the bottom here, since the other sides are kind of in use. I could switch it for an ender chest or some other linked inventory, some multi-block inventory. Plenty of options here. But anyways, then the items are distributed via round robin into various, processing machines. I do have all the and conduit speed upgrades here, so it'll withdraw a stack at a time. So if I only order, say, a stack of glass, oopsies, I can't order through this thing. I have to order from here. So if I only order one stack of glass, I should put the recipe for glass in. These recipes have to be encoded as processing patterns, and you kind of draw them yourself if you don't like what the default is. I'm going to intentionally say 3 stacks of sand makes 3 stacks of glass, because if I want 1 piece of glass, I may as well make a lot, because I'll need the rest of it later. So I put this recipe in here now, and I order glass. And even if I only order 1, where is it? Oh, I don't think I've hooked up the P2p interface yet. 1 second. All right, so I just find, basically, I look for the next one that has no channels in use. So this one has 0 in use. Link it there, and then link that. By the way, power is supplied, again, by the Tesseract here. At some point, I'm going to have to centralize power production, and then that'll make this system a bit more robust. Because right now, my Tesseract is just plugged in, right here, right? Which doesn't actually have an infinite, it doesn't have access to all of my energy production, but I'll fix that later. We're going to have to redo our energy generation pretty soon anyways. All right, now for real, I should be able to request glass. Let's see, here we go. If I request for 1 piece, it'll still make me 3 stacks. That'll dump 3 stacks of sand into this buffer chest, this chest, where because it withdraws 1 stack at a time, right? It only turns on 3 furnaces. If I could make the recipe say 8 stacks makes 8 stacks, I would, but I can't. But anyways, these furnaces cook the sand into glass, which gets put back into the into the interface, which causes it to be put back into the ME system, which causes the craft to be marked as done, and we can view our progress here. It's going. All right, so I'm going to do something similar with I think it was Certus dust I needed, right? 3 stacks of Certus quartz makes 3 stacks of Certus dust. We will set this one into the pulverizer. And you can put the recipe in through the interface terminal as well. Oh, with those 2 recipes encoded, I'm pretty sure we can now ask for 64k storage cells. And let's get 20. Oh, I don't have enough redstone, huh? Whoops. All right. In one of my recipes, I must have accidentally said that it has to use quite clear glass. Probably this one? Yeah. So if you use the allow substitutions one, it'll look for the substitution, like it'll look for valid substitutions, but it won't try to craft the valid substitutions. So it'll look to see, yeah, I have, like, it'll see the 192 glass I have available, but it won't check to see if I can craft more glass. So you still want the default item to use to be the one that you can craft. And then if you leave substitutions on, it'll happily use however many pieces of the quite clear glass I had left over. All right, let's try this again. I guess let's settle for 10. I must have used a whole lot of redstone today. So this uses a fair bit of redstone, bunch of other stuff, 1000 Certus. Go. And then we can view its crafting progress here. In addition to that, we would need some drives. So let's just make, I don't know, 8 drives. Each drive takes 1 channel. So, yeah, well, each drive takes 1 channel, not each drive device, not each, what do you call these things? Storage cell. So it's very channel efficient as far as storage goes. I guess I'll just put it here. Now these 64K storage cells are done. Let's get them and put them in one of the drives. The drives also have a priority. The way the priority works is that when you withdraw items, you withdraw from the lowest priority that has it. When you insert items, you insert into the highest priority that can hold it. So generally speaking, it tries to over time put all your items into the highest priority. Default priority is 0, and if there's ever a tie between digital storage and dedicated storage, something like something on a storage bus, the tie always goes to the storage bus. So that's in that way, I'd say it's intelligent. If an item can fit on a storage bus, you usually want it to go there. But that's why I have these all set to negative priority, because I want, you know, like if I have sand, right, I don't want it going in here. I want it going in what drawer? This drawer, as long as it can. That's it for today, though, folks. So tomorrow we'll come back, and I think I want to tackle power tomorrow. We're kind of underproducing power again. As you can see, this energy bank here is basically never full, especially if I have to charge my jetpack. Then, you know, oh boy. Although technically, no matter how much power we produce, we have some power consumers that will just gobble it all up. Both the molecular transformer here and the this one, the mass fabricator, will gobble up a limitless amount of energy. So we have to produce a limitless amount of energy to feed it, I guess is the takeaway. But anyways, that's it for today. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.